This is Plant-Based Briefing, Ditch Dairy for Stronger Bones, from PlantPureCommunities.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson, and this is the curated content plant-based podcast where I get permission from a variety of contributors to read their information to you here in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And I have a favor to ask of you. Could you take a moment to leave me a review? And there's a super simple way to do it now. If you simply go to plantbasedbriefing.com, I have a button right at the top center of the page that says Rate and Review the Podcast here. So click there, and it takes you to a page that automatically displays only the rating and review platforms compatible with your device. So for example, only Android users will see Podcast Addict, and iOS users will see Apple Podcasts. So if you could take a minute to leave a review, I'd really appreciate it, and I'm going to be giving shout-outs to people who have nice things to say. So here's one from T. Flink from the United States. Quick, informative, and relaxing. I could listen to Marian all day. She's straight to the point, extremely informed, and non-confrontational. She provides the facts without infusing guilt into the equation, and her voice is so soothing to listen to. The short clips are the perfect amount of time for this quick educational hit, long enough to provide detail, but short enough to keep my attention. Keep the episodes coming. Thanks so much for this review, and now on to today's episode, which is from PlantPure Communities. They're a nonprofit working to build stronger, healthier, and more sustainable communities through research, policy, and program activities. They were formed following the release of the 2015 documentary PlantPure Nation, which demonstrates how political and economic interests suppressed the message of plant-based nutrition for decades. And it concludes with a call to action for people to form local plant-based support groups called pods. And PlantPure Communities offers tons of resources to support these local groups. So check them out. Maybe you have a local pod in your area. You can find out the information at plantpurecommunities.org. And now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Ditch Dairy for Stronger Bones, from plantpurecommunities.org. Despite what many have been led to believe, dairy does not do a body good. In fact, increased bone fractures and osteoporosis directly correlate with increased dairy consumption. The more dairy, the more bone fractures. Although the prevailing sentiment is that consuming cow's milk reduces the risk of osteoporosis, in fact, it does just the opposite. Cow's milk does contain calcium, but that isn't the end of the story. Any value from the calcium in the cow's milk is outweighed by the negative impacts from dairy. Science shows that increased consumption of high-protein foods like milk and other animal-derived foods, coupled with consumption of less plant-derived foods, are associated with lower long-term bone health. I tell my patients, including parents of children, that drinking milk will not make bones stronger, positively affect bone growth, prevent bone fractures, or hasten fracture healing. This is based on my 35 years of orthopedic surgery practice and experience, says orthopedist Ted L. Weissman, MD, FAAOS, Connecticut Orthopedics, attending orthopedic surgeon, Yale New Haven Health System. The good news is that by consuming a plant-based diet, we can increase our calcium consumption while simultaneously protecting the calcium in our bones. The recommended daily allowance, RDA, for calcium is 1,000 milligrams per day. This RDA can easily be met by eating a salad of spinach, 3 cups, has 735 milligrams, chickpeas, a half cup has 54 milligrams, broccoli, half a cup with 31 milligrams, and tofu, half a cup with 434 milligrams. Other rich sources of calcium include collards, 1 cup has 268 milligrams, kale, 1 cup has 94 milligrams, mustard greens, 1 cup with 165 milligrams, Swiss chard, 1 cup has 102, black beans, 1 cup has 102, and white beans, 1 cup has 161 milligrams. You can also get calcium through fortified orange or apple juices, 300 milligrams per cup, and fortified plant-based milks, 450 to 560 milligrams per cup. Beyond the widespread misunderstanding of dairy's connection with calcium and strong bones, many also believe that cow's milk is a crucial source of vitamin D, but this is another myth. Vitamin D is crucial for calcium absorption, the process of mineralization and strengthening of bone. However, the vast majority of the vitamin D we use, 90%, is made by our own bodies via exposure to sunlight. Less than 10% comes from food. When our skin is exposed to sunlight, our body turns cholesterol already flowing in our bloodstream into vitamin D. This vitamin D is inactive until it passes through the liver and kidneys, whereupon it becomes active and facilitates the absorption of calcium in the GI tract. When vitamin D levels are insufficient, calcium absorption is at risk of being insufficient and can lead to osteoporosis. Cows are no better at making vitamin D than we are. Vitamin D is added in the processing of milk after its extraction from the cow. In other words, cow's milk, soy milk, and almond milk are all fortified with vitamin D. Ted Wiseman, MD. The best way to get vitamin D is from sunlight, but it's also important to eat foods such as mushrooms and vitamin D-fortified plant-based cereals and milks. For those with inadequate sun exposure, example in the winter months, a vitamin D supplement may be valuable. Our vitamin D requirement is between 1,000 and 2,000 IU per day, depending on such factors as sun exposure, northerners need more, age, the elderly need more, medical history, those with GI problems need more, and diet, those with nutritionally poor diets need more. An important 2014 Swedish study of over 100,000 men and women showed an inverse relationship between milk consumption and both life expectancy and fracture incidence. Greater milk consumption was associated with a higher mortality and fracture rate. Indeed, various population studies in the U.S. and elsewhere that analyzed the relationship between dietary calcium intake and fractures have failed to show that higher calcium intakes, primarily from dairy, protect against fractures. We have had evidence for well over 100 years that animal protein decreases bone health, and yet we are still warned almost daily about our need for dairy to provide calcium for strong bones. The science is clear. Ditch the dairy for stronger bones. T. Colin Campbell, Ph.D. 5 tips for ditching dairy today. 1. Start transitioning to whole food plant-based with the help of this toolkit linked here. For example, the info sheet called Whole Food Plant-Based Grocery Basics lists common ingredients found in whole food plant-based recipes, most of which can be purchased at chain grocery stores. 2. Join or start a local whole food plant-based group for support getting started on your whole food plant-based journey. Becoming part of the PlantPure Communities pod network opens the door to encouragement, education, and networking opportunities. 3. Try a sample course from the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies in partnership with eCornell and learn how to apply a whole food plant-based lifestyle to improve your health. 4. Focus on exercise to strengthen your bones. Creating strong bones is not just a matter of swallowing calcium-rich foods. Just like muscles that need to be repeatedly used to make them stronger, our bones need to be used daily through gentle, sustained weight-bearing exercise, so the osteoblast cells in our skeleton will be stimulated to lay down new bone matrix. This is covered extensively in Dr. Michael Clapper's video on healthy bones, linked here. And 5, get cooking. Try these delicious dairy-free dishes that provide calcium and vitamin D. Mushroom stroganoff, Buddha bowl, sweet pepper coconut corn chowder, and buffalo beans and greens. All the recipes are linked in the original post. Note, in writing this article, PlantPure Communities consulted with T. Colin Campbell, Ph.D., co-author of the New York Times best-selling book The China Study, who serves on PlantPure Communities' advisory board. Dr. Campbell is the Jacob Gould Sherman Professor Emeritus of Nutritional Biochemistry at Cornell University and a bionutritional researcher with over 60 years of experience in the field of nutritional science. You just listened to Ditch Dairy for Stronger Bones by PlantPureCommunities.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson, and just a reminder, if you can, please go to plantbasedbriefing.com and click rate and review the podcast here. I'd really appreciate it, and also please share this episode with anyone who might benefit. Thanks for listening.